Well, he didn't get the Excelsior, but he did get Exquisite. Here's a look at the brand new Hiya toys. This is the Star Trek Exquisite Mini of Captain Kirk. This brand new James T. Kirk action figure stands at 105 millimeters tall and faithfully reproduces appearance from Star Trek 2009. He is dressed in the iconic yellow uniform representing command and strategic personnel. The Starfleet emblem on his clothes, communicator, phaser, pistol, and other accessories are finely detailed, capturing the essence of the character even in the 1/18th scale. Well, it's been a long time, a Kelvin time, since we've got ourselves some decent Star Trek figures. Are Hiya about to change that? Before we answer that question with this review, the first thing I want to do is thank the folks over at Hiya that provided the sample of the Star Trek 2009 Exquisite Mini-Series James T. Kirk that we could have a look in this review. The figure is slated to drop the third quarter of 2024 with the asking price online of $24.99. Kirk, though, is going to stand at about 4 inches in height, or he's going to be about 10 centimeters tall. I guess if him and the crew of the Enterprise are going to be exploring the astral unknown, perhaps some of the other alien creatures they may meet along the ways would be also the ones that we've gotten from Hiya in the past. Like, for example, the Berserker Predator and the Pred Alien. Just to give you at least an idea, I suppose I probably could have brought in a couple of other examples as well, but, Kirk from a size standpoint of a human being would fit in well, I think, with the size of what we get with Berserker and the previously looked at Pred Alien. Beaming now in are the accessories that come included with Kirk. First, the figure does come included with a display stand. Quite a very elaborate looking display stand. It actually looks like a view screen that we would see inside the Enterprise. It's actually really no different than regular rectangular display stands we've gotten from Hiya in the past. This just happens to be, I think, the Injustice 2 display stands, but they work essentially the exact same way. Though this does have a border, if you look at the bottom of this, though, there are these slots on the side. You get these eye brackets, and you can plug these in place. You don't really even necessarily need 2 of them either. Just plug them into those slots. Now, I did notice, though, a couple of slots seemed a little tighter, like this one just right here. If you look at the eye bracket, this one doesn't fit as easily in, so maybe we might just change course correction. Let's bring it over to the other side as well. Now, I haven't honestly, truth be told, tried this yet. But these should fit in. Yeah, this one right here just seems to be a little thicker. Anyway, we'll leave it off for right now, at least. The point I did want to drive home, though, if you have yourself a regular rectangular stand from previous Hiya releases, you can actually take the display stand and you can connect them together. I mean, it may look a little sore and out of place that you're going to have 2 completely different terrains like this, but at least it gives the idea across that you can mix and match the components. You can mix and match the display stands if you so wish. I don't really know why, though. That one right here is a little bit thicker. It looks to be about the same size, and yet I can't get into that. There we go. Just had to put a little bit of extra pressure. I feel like this would also be in a good place as well. You already got the Star Trek logo down below, and also does indicate that this is a trademark. I think this also would have been a perfect place to add a bio. I mean, obviously, I would think that they probably are just going to be using the same generic stands. We will be looking at both Bones and Spock in upcoming reviews. But, I mean, how cool would that be if they had put a little bio on the back of this? Anyways, though, let's just take the eye brackets off. Really, really finicky this time around. There we go, just put it off to the side. There is a peg right here, too, that you can take the holes on either one of Kirk's boots, and you can plug them onto the display stand. Ideally good as well if you want to have this guy in a dynamic pose, if you wanted to. Again, just plug it in place. The only one concern I really also have as well is if you're looking at the peg, it looks like they are using translucent. Can you see that? Translucent plastic. So it may not have been the best choice of plastic when it comes to a peg that's going to attach onto a figure's feet, because you're probably going to be putting it on and removing it frequently. I just think that plastic may break. Let's move the stand off to the side. The figure does also come included with a couple other things as well. Some swappable hands. I've actually already taken the liberty of removing one of the hands. It was a relaxed hand. The figure also comes included with a gripping, I guess I should say a closed fist hand, because I've already taken the liberty of adding on the gripping hands. The hands themselves are a little harder to put on, just because, again, you're dealing with a small figure. And because you're dealing with a small figure, you're obviously dealing with smaller pegs as well. The hands themselves do fit on there, but I find it helps actually just to twist the hand a little bit to get it onto the peg. Every once in a while, though, and I'm saying this well in advance, if you go to try to move the hand around, sometimes it does pop the hand off the peg. It's a fairly easy thing to fix. We'll just, while the figure's arm is up right now, the figure does also come included with a Starfleet issued belt. The belt is one thing that's going to hold both his communicator and his phase pistol. You can see there's a holster there on the side for the phase pistol. There's a slot on the side here for the communicator. Initially thinking, though, this belt wouldn't be undone, realizing later, though, it actually has a little tab right here that fits inside this hole. The thing about it, though, is the first time you do this, you think, oh, this isn't going to give me any problems moving forward. And unfortunately, that's not the case. The plastic, as you can see, does bend, and it bends very easily. The moment you try to put this back in place, I've noticed this bends this, I mean, way too many times to count, unfortunately. And it hasn't yet developed, but I worry that over time it's going to develop stress marks. I mean, it's kind of like an old simple idea that like even old action figures back in the 80s would have had these belts attached the exact same way, but I don't know. I just don't think the belt really does work all that well, especially if you're looking to close the clasp again. Luckily, you don't even really need to do that either. I mean, all you really need to do is fit this around his waist, and then you can just sort of give the suggested idea that the belt is closed up on the back. I mean, from looking at it from the front, I mean, you'd be really none the wiser to know that the belt hasn't been done back up. Again, like if we just move his arms out of the way, there is a suction slot here to, well, you know what, let's put the figure down here for a second. I want to show you guys what these accessories look like up close and personal. They're pretty small, though. So he gets himself a communicator. Communicator essentially just is a black rectangular piece of plastic with a little bit of silver added to the top. It doesn't open. It would be a very difficult thing for this thing to open just for the size of this, but it does fit, though, into his hands. And the plastic for the hands, luckily, at least is soft enough. And you get him to hold the communicator, and he holds it, you know, he holds it okay. He also does have the option of holding his phaser. I will tell you, though, I wasn't really a big fan of the phaser in the 2000, well, even like just the J.J. Abrams 2009 trilogy, all subsequent sequels afterwards. I just didn't like the way that the front flipped around. So you'd have basically a stun, and then the front would flip around if you wanted to have the kill shots. It is nicely molded here, though, in silver, and you can also, of course, put that in his hand as well. And he holds both accessories decently. The only thing, again, you might have worries with is maybe like the hands falling off the pegs. Now, again, you can take both of those, and you can conveniently holster them on the side. So we'll just get his arm again out of the way. The phaser tucks in on one side. And when you tuck this in, too, you're going to find a lot of the phaser does stick out, but I think it's pretty accurate to the movie. You can also take as well the communicator. The communicator's so small, so very, very small. And again, that can holster on the side. I like at least that there's storage for this. The thing I'm not so crazy with is the fact that the belt just doesn't do up well enough. And I was trying to kind of think to myself, like, what would they have done instead? Could they have used a peg? Peg would just be something you'd have to fit over top. That probably would have worked as well. But again, like looking at it from the front, you'd never really be knowing that the belt wasn't done up completely. And two, also, it's just so much easier if you remove it where you don't even have this attached in the first place. Moving that off to the side, getting, though, a closer look at Captain Kirk. I will say right away, I was impressed to see how much detail they were able to put into this figure for a figure that's considering this small. I feel from a likeness standpoint, it does look a lot like Chris Pine's Kirk. Maybe only offering up any little bit of criticism would be more so to the coloring of his skin. I feel like it's maybe a little bit too pink. But other than that, though, I think the likeness definitely is there. And you got to really consider this as well. Like, here's my finger. Here's the size of Kirk. How many other companies have failed getting likenesses this good for a figure this small? Again, it's well painted. You can see it on the eyebrows, the eyes, the mouth as well. It's really landing a decent likeness of Kirk. I just wish that the coloring of his skin was maybe a little bit darker or maybe not as pink as what we're getting here. Of course, he gets his Starfleet issued tunic here as well. What you won't see, though, because of the size of this, is the tiny little Starfleet symbols. One of my things I didn't really like necessarily about the new Star Trek films. Why just overly complicate it? Just give them a Starfleet issued shirt. You don't have to make it. Why do all movies and stuff always have to give these shirts that have tiny little symbols that make up the fabric? Luckily, he has the only symbol that's the most important is obviously the Starfleet symbol there on the top. He's got some additional striping there also along the corners of his shoulders. It's a good colored shirt. I feel like it might be a little too green, but I think all in all, though, it does look quite good. Lower half of his body, of course, made up of slacks. He's got some black slacks, and he's also got some very shiny black boots there as well. There is also a little bit of attention to detail as they took the time to paint the little silver there on the strap he has on the side of the belt. I didn't even realize he had the strap on the side of his boot like that until I realized it on the figure. Then I went back and looked at it again, and it seems to be the case that they do have them. So really, again, like there's a lot of tension going on here for a figure that's essentially only 4 inches in size. Now, for the figure's articulation, if you are familiar with the Exquisite Super Mini or the Exquisite Mini series by now, you're pretty much familiar with what you're going to be getting here. The head is actually attached to the neck, and when you're moving the neck, you're basically moving the head. It's one piece completely. The head still succeeds to rotate all the way around. You can move the head up, you move it down. Of course, you can also rock it back and forth as well. Shoulders hinge out. They're on pins. You can bring out at about, I would say, 90 degrees. You can also as well take those arms and rotate them all the way around. While I'm doing this, you may have already noticed that the top of his shirt is more of a softer plastic. I don't know if that means it was just an easier thing for them to tool, that they took basically a body and then they just tooled a softer plastic overlay that went over top of it. It may also help to give this guy some additional articulation. It doesn't seem, though, that you can actually move his torso where it's separate from the rest of his lower half of his body. But he does have succeeding, at least, with a ball joint. So you can rotate the body all the way around. Again, going back to the arms, though, they rotate forward and back. You got the single bend in the elbow that allows the arm to rotate back and forth. And the hands, hopefully, will stay onto the pegs. You can rotate them all the way around. There's a little additional silver that they've actually added there to the forearms, too. Legs split out. They're on ball joints, by the way. You can take the legs and, yeah, you can move them forward. You can move them back. There's a swivel there at the top of the thigh. A double hinge on the knee, which is nice to see. There's articulation as well for the boots, and you can also move them up and down, and you can also rock them back and forth. And again, you also make use of the fact that the figure does have pegals on the bottoms of his feet. The only thing, again, I would be a little bit more worrisome, something I did already mention, is the fact that they are using clear plastic here. So I think attaching the figure onto the feet, or attaching the peg onto the feet, just want to be careful. That's all I'm saying. Just be a little bit careful. All in all, though, like, it's a good looking Kirk. I'm just so impressed the fact that it, for Hiya Toys to take a figure that is this tall. I mean, to kind of give you at least an idea compared to my hand, to get a figure this small with this much detail is quite really impressive. I would hope that maybe down the road, we're going to kind of get away from the Kelvin universe, that we can maybe even get some classic Star Trek figures. If this is any again of an indication of what Hiya is capable of doing with Star Trek figures, I would, yes, definitely be interested to see what they could do with, like, a true William Shatner Captain Kirk, and maybe even some of the crew from the original Starship Enterprise. But what I'm seeing here, though, is what I'm seeing here for Captain Kirk, I'm really liking quite a lot. A lot of good colors. Again, I feel like the colors for his face are maybe a little bit too pink, but from a likeness standpoint, quite impressive, again, that they were able to capture this for such a small-looking figure. If you are liking the look of Captain Kirk, and you're interested to see what Hiya has in store for more Star Trek, all this week, in fact, we will be looking at the new Hiya Toys Star Trek 2009 Exquisite mini-series as we look at both Spock and Bones as well. If you want more of a fix for the Captain, you'll be happy to know, beaming up in a bigger size in November 2024, Hiya is planning to release an Exquisite Super Series Captain. So instead of being 1/18th, he's going to be 1/12th. Instead of having a plastic uniform, it's going to be all fabric instead. Now, that figure is going to be selling at $109.99, the general asking price of what Exquisite Super Series figures tend to be. Going, though, back to this one, perhaps outside of maybe the pigmentation of his skin maybe being a little too light, maybe being a little bit too pink, I think it does definitely look, especially for its size, and that's the most important thing, I think it looks a lot like actor Chris Pine. He has 2 accessories, and he also has a belt. I don't really have, I think, plans to have the figure displayed with the belt. The belt is a little more cumbersome because you have to try to do it up on the back, and the plastic being as soft as it is. I feel like in a case like that, they probably should have used more of a rubbery plastic, because I think that would have been giving you more of an easier time to do it shut. With it using plastic like this, I worry that it's going to start to develop stress marks. But when it comes to displaying the Dear Captain on my shelf, I don't really have a plan to display him with the belt, but definitely will be displaying him with the communicator and the included phaser. What do you guys think of Captain Kirk? Let me know down below in the comment section. Is this a figure you guys could see yourselves picking up? Like I said, this guy is going to be dropping the 3rd quarter of 2024, so around October to November. Big thank you once again to the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample that we could have a look at in this review. If you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid, throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. As mentioned, we will be looking also as Spock and Bones. Those will be coming up all this week. So I want to make sure that you're coming back regularly. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.